Yashodanandana Braja Jana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Gopijana Vallabha Jaya Giridharadhari Jaya Giridharadhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Tira Vanachari Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Radha Madhava Radhe Jaya Radha Shama Sundar Radha Shama Sundar Radhe Jaya Krishna Balaram Krishna Balaram Krishna Balaram Jaya Krishna Balaram Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Baladeva Subhadramani Jaya Sudarshana Jaya Panchatattva 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 Jaya Panchatattva Jaya Lakshmi Narasimha Ananta Devi Lakshmi Narasimha Ananta Devi Prabhupada, 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 Gurudeva, 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 Nittagaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nittagaur Hari Bol. परिणाम संकीर्तन की जय, अंतराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय, गुरु श्री प्रभुपाद की जय. Hare Krishna devotees, thank you for the opportunity to share a few thoughts on today's particular shloka. Start with some prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udhirayet Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavatas Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Let me share the screen. Okay. I hope all of you can see it. So we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 5, verse 13. This is a conversation between the great devotee Mahatma Vidura and Maitreya Rishi. Maitreya Rishi is a great friend of Vyasadeva. So it's a very beautiful conversation and they have a very beautiful relationship. If you haven't read the chapter, you should read the chapter from the beginning of how they meet and how they have this wonderful interaction. Sa Shraddhadanasya Vivardhamana Viraktim Anyatra Karoti Pumsaha Harehi Padhanusmriti Nirvritasya Samasta Dukkhapayam Ashidhatte Sa Shraddhadanasya Vivardhamana Viraktim Anyatra Karoti Pumsaha Harehi Padhanusmriti Nirvritasya Samasta Dukkhapayam Ashidhatte Sa Shraddhadanasya Vivardhamana Viraktim Anyatra Karoti Pumsaha Harehi Padanusmriti Nirvritasya Samastha Dukkhapayamashidhatte. Word for word translation. Sa, those topics of Krishna or Krishna Katha, Shraddhadhanasya, of one who is anxious to hear, Vivardhamana, gradually increasing, Viraktim, indifference, Anyatra, in other things than such topics, Karoti, does, Pumsaha, of one who is so engaged, Harehe, of the Lord, Pada Anusmriti, constant remembrance of the lotus feet of the Lord, Nirvritasya, one who has achieved such transcendental bliss, Samasta Dukkhaha, all miseries, Apyayam, vanquished, Ashu, without delay, Dhatte, executes. Translation by Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada. For one who is anxious to engage constantly in hearing such topics, Krishna Katha gradually increases his indifference towards all other things. Such constant remembrance of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna by the devotee who has achieved transcendental bliss vanquishes all his miseries without delay. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. We must certainly know that on the absolute plane, Krishna Katha and Krishna are one and the same. The Lord is the absolute truth, and therefore his name, form, quality, etc., which are all understood to be Krishna Katha, are non-different from him. Bhagavad Gita, being spoken by the Lord, is as good as the Lord himself. When a sincere devotee reads Bhagavad Gita, this is as good as seeing the Lord face to face in his personal presence. But this is not so for the mundane wrangler. All the potencies of the Lord are there when one reads Bhagavad Gita, provided it is read in the way recommended in the Gita by the Lord himself. One cannot foolishly manufacture and interpretation of Bhagavad Gita and still bring about transcendental benefit. Anyone who tries to squeeze some artificial meaning or interpretation from Bhagavad Gita for an ulterior motive is not Shraddhadhana Pumsaha, one engaged anxiously in bona fide hearing of Krishna Katha. Such a person cannot derive any benefit from reading Bhagavad Gita. However great a scholar he may be in the estimation of a layman, the Shraddhadhana of faithful devotee can actually derive all the benefits of Bhagavad Gita, because by the omnipotency of the Lord, he achieves the transcendental bliss which vanquishes attachment and nullifies all concomitant material miseries. Only the devotee, by his factual experience, can understand the import of this verse spoken by Vidura. Once again, very important, only the devotee, by his factual experience, can understand the import of this verse spoken by Vidura. The pure devotee of the Lord enjoys life by constantly remembering the lotus feet of the Lord, by hearing Krishna Katha. For such a devotee, there is no such thing as material existence, and the much advertised bliss of Brahmananda is like a fig for the devotee who is in the midst of the transcendental ocean of bliss. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Mena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Svapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uttapadakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanitamscha Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamine Namne Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschat Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Lankhayati Guri Mitkripatamaham Vande Shri Guru Venadharinam Paramanandam Umancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gauratishe Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gauratishe. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, so Sashadbhadanasya Vivardhamana Viraptim Manyatra Karoti Pumsaha. Very beautiful verse. Devotees many times ask, Prabhu, I have been reading for so long, I've been practicing Krishna consciousness for so long, but somehow, I don't know, I feel I may not be advancing in Krishna consciousness. I have no taste in chanting the holy name. I have not felt any renunciation. This is one level of bhakti. The answers to those questions are given here in this particular verse, and very beautifully, very beautifully. So, why is it? What happens? What is the reason we are not really, after spending so many years in Krishna consciousness, sometimes 20 years, 25 years, 30 years, we may become, we may call it stability. We may become stable in the sense that after so many years, we may not leave Krishna consciousness. Normally, we don't, but there are times that even that has happened. But then, or at least even if they leave Krishna consciousness, it would be for a temporary phase, and then they know that how miserable the world is. Even if one is not happy within the walls of ISKCON, they step out, but they will eventually come back because they know that the world outside is horrible. ISKCON as a movement may have, 1008 faults. Somebody may complain about politics and somebody may complain about this and the management and all of that. Prabhu, they're not doing this according to Prabhupada. This is supposed to happen, that is supposed to happen. All kinds of things are told. But ultimately, we know that it is incomparable to the world outside, which is so full of miseries. And we don't want to be in a world like that. So even if somebody temporarily steps out of ISKCON, they come back. But then, why do they even want to do that after 20 years and 30 years of staying in the movement? And if they don't step out, they will just sustain somehow their entire life. We will just sustain ourselves in Krishna consciousness with a bare minimum. I'm chanting my 16 rounds. Somehow, because of the association of devotees and the environment, we follow the 4 regulative principles. Prasadam is provided, we have that prasadam. Devotees are chanting, we chant. Devotees are attending Bhagavatam class, we attend Bhagavatam class. And this is the, what I've just defined is somebody who is really very sincere. Somebody may not even do that. Bhagavatam class is taken for granted because when we take initiation, Bhagavatam class is not an oath that we take. We take an oath for 4 regulative principles and chanting 16 rounds, right? We don't tell them that Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya is one of my oaths. So anything that we can break, we will certainly break. Something that we should not break, we know, oh, this is an offense, it will be a Guru Aparad, hence we will, it is okay. Those things will be very strict, 16 rounds and 4 regulative principles. But anything that we've not promised, that we can compromise on. Sri Bhagavatam class, we've not promised. Bhagavatam is saying that we must attend every day. Nityam Bhagavata Sevayam. Krishna is saying Satatam Kirtayanto Mam. But then I have not promised, and hence I will break. Is this sincerity? When Srila Prabhupada is when Krishna is asking for sincerity, when Srila Prabhupada is speaking about sincerity, we must actually look into ourselves. We must be a mirror. We must look into the mirror and look at ourselves. And this mirror can come only when we are chanting Hare Krishna properly, when we're doing our japa properly in the morning, not for the sake of doing japa. Of course, that aspect is always there in Vaidhi Bhakti, that we follow whatever the spiritual master has told. We have to do that. Srila Prabhupada has told us to chant 16 rounds, so we will chant up 16 rounds. But Krishna is Bhavagrahi, and he wants our love. So we have to pray to Krishna even while chanting, even though we have no taste for the holy name, even though we have no desire to see Krishna or serve him, but still we have to feel that love. And if we are not feeling that love, then we have to cry that we are not feeling that love. We must be anxious that why am I not feeling that love? This is Shraddha-dhanasya. One who is anxious to hear. So if I'm not anxious to hear about the Supreme Lord, then there is something wrong in my system. There's something wrong in my consciousness. There is a disease. Then we have to become anxious to get cured from that disease. That, oh Krishna, I can see so many devotees and everybody is so anxious to hear about you. They have questions to ask about you. They want to read, they want to understand more and more. But look at me, I have no taste. I have no taste to hear about you. I have no taste to speak about you. That means there is something terribly wrong with me. I'm suffering from a disease. Don't we all do self-diagnosis? We may be healthy, breathing properly and all of that, but suddenly, 1 day, 2 day, 1 week, you're not able to digest food properly, you're feeling a little acidic, right? 1 day just comes and goes, it's a different thing. But 2 days, 3 days, constantly there is something. Then you do a self-diagnosis and you understand, well, what did I eat? Did I eat something or am I eating something that's different from my usual days? Why is it that suddenly I'm feeling acidic? Why is it that I'm constantly having indigestion issues or acid reflux? What is going on? Then you do a self-diagnosis and then you go back, it's called a root cause analysis. You try and find the root cause of the problem. Then you see that, I ate that chaat, I ate that masala, I saw some recipe on YouTube and I added more garam masala to my food. And that is not, that's doing something to my system. So I need to stop doing it. Self-diagnosis. If somebody just continues that, okay, I've got acidity, whatever, now just continue like that, what will happen? Eventually it will lead to an ulcer, right? And then it can lead to, unmentionable, really complicated problems. Chronic diseases can occur from that if we don't quickly do self-diagnosis. So if we don't have taste for Krishna Katha, then we have to do a self-diagnosis that this is a disease. It is abnormal, because when it is normal, we must be attracted to Krishna. We must be full of anxiety that I want to know more about Krishna. When Vidura and Uddhava meet there, they were asking each other, what happened here? What happened there? I want to know more. So whenever a devotee meets another devotee, a devotee is constantly asking, Prabhu, tell me something more. I read this particular verse. I feel I may have understood on a certain level, but if you could show some light on that particular verse, explain, give me your realizations. It may not be always some senior devotee. It could just be a peer, a friend in Krishna consciousness. A devotee friend, call that devotee, ask them. Set up time with devotees. Can we have 10 minutes? Can we speak for 10 minutes? Can we speak for 15 minutes? Not about anything else. I read a verse, I want to share that with you. Just some realization. I want to bounce this realization on you. What do you think about that? Right? So, this is self-diagnosis, and this we must do. Devotees must do this constantly. We must always be alert that if I'm not having taste in the holy name, then something is wrong. I need to fix myself. I have no taste in hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. Then something is wrong. I have Srimad Bhagavatam in my house. I have the Bhagavad Gita in my house. It's safely kept in the bookshelf. But I'm unable to go and pull the book out and read it for many days or weeks or months. It's gathering dust. I clean the dust also, but I'm not able to pull that book out and open it and read. That means there is something wrong with us. This is self-diagnosis. You must do a self-diagnosis that what did I do? Did I commit a Vaishnava aparadh? Did I commit an aparadh in a dham when I visited a dham? Did I commit an offense to the holy name? Was I inattentive while chanting? Because all of this will have chain reactions, and Krishna consciousness is always a chain reaction. We do something wrong there will be a short circuit everywhere else. I've spoken without thinking with a loose tongue about a particular devotee. Short circuit. It will have an effect somewhere else. We must be very, very careful of how we deal with other devotees, how we deal with the dham, how we deal with Harinam, how we deal with the deities, how we deal with scriptures. Particularly, scriptures are spoken about here in this particular verse. So, being in the mood of Shraddhadhanasya, anxious, Srila Prabhupada is saying we must certainly know that the absolute plain Krishna are one and the same. Krishna Katha and Krishna are one and the same. So when we are holding the Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam, we should be conscious that all the realizations of all the pure devotees of the Lord are hidden here. And the purports are given by our great Acharya, Srila Prabhupada. And these are his realizations. Srila Prabhupada called them his transcendental ecstasies. We tell it very easily, but what are his transcendental ecstasies? Something that we don't even know, we don't have any view into, but Srila Prabhupada is giving us a view into that. Isn't it? So we must have faith, because the Acharyas and Srila Prabhupada, our previous Acharya, has written everything here with complete conviction. And when we read it, we become completely convinced of Krishna consciousness. We become completely convinced that Krishna is actually there. Otherwise, sometimes, even after several years, we may sometimes think, is Krishna really there? What am I doing? I've changed my lifestyle. I'm wearing something on my forehead, my clothes. I have moved to some remote area which they call a dham. But what if Krishna is really not there? What if all this is just some stories, right? So this may happen after decades and decades also. I have seen devotees having that glimmer of that doubt somewhere in the subconscious mind. That's a disease. It's a tumor that needs to be removed. And how can that tumor be removed? By this medical book. By reading Srimad Bhagavatam, such extra, those tumors fall away. And we'll be able to, there will be good circulation of bhakti. We'll be able to digest very nicely the Krishna Katha that we hear. By reading constantly, that conviction of the acharyas pass on to us and we become convinced. This is the process. Then the verse particularly, for one who is anxious to engage constantly in hearing such topics, Krishna Katha gradually increases his indifference towards other things. This is another symptom. If we are still attached to things around us, we may be working, it's okay. To sustain ourselves, we may be working in some organization or we may be working with people, all of that. But are we getting carried away by them? Are we getting carried away by those circumstances? Are we suddenly giving more importance to that? Are we thinking that is the goal of my life to get the next promotion? Or is my goal still Krishna Katha? And if I say, no, my goal is still Krishna Katha, is it only on the surface level? Do I really mean it? I can lie to people around me, but can I lie to myself? Can I lie to the Paramatma? So we must be honest that, am I really attached to Harinam? Am I really attached to this path that Srila Prabhupada has given us, that the Acharyas have chalked out for us, that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has introduced to all of us? Am I convinced that this is what I want to do? Or am I just, in the ocean of this material world, I'm being pushed from here and there by the waves. Somebody is saying stock market, somebody is saying this, somebody is saying that, all of that. I'm just lost in that, in the various choices and options that Maya has to give me. And I'm thinking, yeah, Sunday I go to the temple on Sunday. Or yes, I hear and there I hear something. So we must be very alert. Devotees must be very alert and do a self-diagnosis at all times. So then, such constant remembrance of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna by the devotee who has achieved transcendental bliss vanquishes all his miseries without delay. Anything that we think is a misery today, it could be the pandemic, it could be personal financial losses, it could be our health, it could be so many things that we're going through. But what did we expect? We are in this material world. We made a choice to come to this material world, leave Krishna and come here. So now we have to deal with it. Right? Sometimes devotees ask a very surprising question. And the surprising question that devotees ask is, Prabhu, why are there so many problems in this world? Why is there so many problems I'm dealing with? I have to deal with so many things, Prabhu. This is happening, that is happening. That's a very surprising question. Because when we are standing in a drainage, and we are complaining about the bad smell around, the person, and if you look at people who are outside the drainage and ask them, why is there so much bad smell here? They will tell you, you are standing in a drainage, that's why. Please step out, take bath. There is a beautiful world outside that drainage. Please step out of that. This is what this material world is. It's a stinking drainage. It's a sewage. So we are in this place, and it's going to stink. There is going to be suffering. There's going to be viruses. There's going to be different kinds of miseries. If there is no pandemic, then there will be a tsunami. And once we feel, now we've set up our systems, and there is, we'll be aware the next time there is a tsunami going to come. So we're completely aware. Then there will be war, or there will be drought. There will be floods. There will be different ways We are constantly traumatized by material nature. These are all wake-up calls, but we fail to wake up. We want to go back to our same life again. Look at everybody. People are suffering today because of the pandemic, but what is their only thought in their mind? The world was so beautiful before the pandemic. When is this pandemic going to get over? I want to get back into my normal life. And get back into what normal? I want to go back to my office. I still want to go back to those movie theaters are empty. It's been so long. It is so unfair. The latest movies, we need to go and watch it. This my favorite actor's movie is coming. I need to go and watch it. Or these favorite amazing restaurants, which are all closed because of this pandemic. Let me go there. So this is our problem. And let's always remember that these tests will keep coming. And why do tests keep coming? Because we have not passed that test. A person who has passed a test does not have to go through the same exam again, does not have to go through the same test again. So it's very easy for us to point at people outside, but let's look at ourselves as devotees. What has this pandemic really taught us? What have these different circumstances taught us? We hear about so many devotees leaving their body. It's so unfortunate. I was reading about 5 devotees, in the last few weeks who have left their body in Vrindavan. And very, recently our beloved Pankajangiri Prabhu has left his body. We all know that Mayapur will never be the same again. But then what have we learned from that? What have these wonderful devotees taught us, even in their departure? That life is temporary and this death can come at any time. Death can come at any time. It doesn't even have to knock on our doors anymore. It can just blow with the wind now. Death is just there in the wind. Someone needs to just breathe. Someone just needs to inhale, and they would have just inhaled death. A devotee is alive and kicking today, and next week they're not there. So let us not be those kind of people who are just have this smashana vairagya. Only when someone dies, we think, oh, life is temporary. And then we forget them. We will forget Pankajangiri Prabhu after some time. We all feel sad. Just like we forgot Bhakti Charu Maharaj. When Bhakti Charu Maharaj left his body, everybody was, oh, Bhakti Charu Maharaj has left. I can't believe this. But what did we do? We temporarily felt renounced from this world, or life is temporary. After that, what did we do? We went back into our lives. After the departure of Bhakti Charu Maharaj, did we increase our Krishna Katha? Did we increase our attachment to Krishna? Did I try and become more anxious? Was I convinced that I can also die at any time? We will do the same thing with Pankajangiri Prabhu. That momentarily we feel bad, but after his departure, we will think, after some time, we get used to our lives again. Isn't it? Isn't this the most amazing thing that Yudhishthir Maharaj spoke about? When in the Yaksha Prashna, when the Yaksha asked questions to Yudhishthir Maharaj, when all the Pandavas had dropped dead, and Yudhishthir Maharaj was parched. He is parched. He wants to drink water. But the Yaksha Prashna, the Yamaraj, who has come as Yaksha, was asking Yudhishthir Maharaj, tell me what is the most amazing thing in the world. And Yudhishthir Maharaj says, the most amazing thing is that people see that everybody around them are dying, but they believe that they will not die. And Yamaraj agreed with that. And because who can know death better than Yamaraj, isn't it? He is the authority of death. Mrityu Kanya goes wherever Yamaraj asks her to go. So he agreed. Yamaraj agreed that yes, this is the most amazing thing. It's sure, we all know we're going to die, but we think it's not right now. It's not urgent. It's not immediate. This pandemic is beautiful. This pandemic is amazing because it's teaching us a lesson. It's how we see, isn't it? It's our perspective of this world. Somebody may see the pandemic as as the greatest threat, and somebody may see the pandemic as a great teacher. For a devotee, even when death comes, he sees Krishna. That Krishna is coming as death. Just like Bhishma Dev was standing with his arms wide open when Krishna picked up that wheel, his Sudarshana, to attack him. Bhishma Dev said, yes, Krishna is coming like death for me, with arms wide open. So devotees like that, with arms wide open when death comes. But are we really devotees? Are we full of anxiety that, oh, tomorrow I may die and what may happen? So yes, we may die. Why tomorrow? It can happen today. It can happen at any time. But our anxiety should not be that I'm going to die. Our anxiety should be that, am I prepared for the test? Our life is meant to prepare for that final test at the time of death. Am I going to remember Krishna? And we will not remember Krishna if we have not practiced remembering Krishna. We must remember Krishna to such a level that even when we are asleep, we are thinking of Krishna, we are dreaming of Krishna, and it is possible. It's not an esoteric idea. If a devotee is constantly thinking about Krishna, about Harinam, about Krishna Katha, if you hear Srimad Bhagavatam or you've read a particular verse, we meditate on that verse the entire day. How we apply that in our lives. Practically, how do I apply it? And if you're not able to break that code, speak to a devotee. Ask them, how do I apply this personally in my life? So in this way, a devotee advances in Krishna consciousness. And Srila Prabhupada is saying, Bhagavad Gita being spoken by the Lord is as good as the Lord himself. There is no difference between the Bhagavad Gita and Krishna. In fact, sometimes we may think, I wish I was there on the battlefield when Krishna was speaking the Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. I could have just lent a ear and heard a little. You know, Srila Prabhupada, when he was speaking to Hayagriva Prabhu, at that time, Srila Prabhupada was discussing many things about the Bhagavad Gita with Hayagriva Prabhu. At this point, because Hayagriva Prabhu was doing the initial editing and all of that, so Prabhupada told Hayagriva Prabhu that me speaking Bhagavad Gita to you is non-different from Krishna speaking Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. Prabhupada said it's the same thing. So when we are reading Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, it is the exact same thing. It is Srila Prabhupada speaking Bhagavad Gita to us is as good as Krishna speaking Bhagavad Gita to Arjuna. This is why it is as it is. Let's not take that word, that phrase lightly. When Srila Prabhupada is written as it is, it's not just some catchy term to sound different from other Bhagavad Gitas. Yatha Rupa. It is as it is. There is no difference between Krishna and Arjuna's conversation and the Bhagavad Gita as it is that we are reading. So have that kind of faith and read. Tat viddhi pranipatena pariprashnena sevaya. And we will not be able to understand the Bhagavad Gita without sevaya, without service, without glorification of the spiritual master. That's why I said we should read this particular chapter from the beginning, and you will see how Vidura invites Maitreya Rishi, and before he requests Maitreya Rishi to share his realizations with him, Vidura glorifies Maitreya Rishi. He glorifies him, he serves him, he offers him a suitable place to sit, and he sits on a level below him. He pays obeisances and uses wonderful words to glorify Maitreya Rishi. This is the process. This is the process. And this is why I have told before, and I continue to say that devotees must perform Guru Puja every day. Not being able to come to the temple because of the pandemic is not a reason for us to skip Guru Puja or Mangala Arati. We must perform Guru Puja every day. We must perform. This is the first prayer in the morning when we look at Krishna. We are thinking Samsara Dava. We're not glorifying Krishna, we're glorifying the spiritual masters. Because that is the way Krishna is pleased. Yasya prasadat bhagavat prasado. Yasya prasadan nagati kutopi. If the spiritual master is not pleased, Krishna is not pleased. Why do we recite prayers before we chant or before our Bhagavatam class? We chant prayers to the spiritual master. We chant prayers to the Goswamis, to the Panchatattva, because without them, without that disciplic succession, there is no understanding Krishna. We cannot understand Krishna. Very important concepts Prabhupada is speaking. This purport must be read again and again for us to understand properly from different angles. Prabhupada is saying one cannot foolishly manufacture an interpretation of the Bhagavad Gita and still bring out transcendental benefit. Leave alone the people outside. We're not even talking about them. Somebody who has translated Gandhi and whoever, however, whatever they've done. Let them be. Let's talk about ourselves. When I read Srila Prabhupada's books, am I making a manufacturing and interpretation? Sometimes women would read the Bhagavad Gita and try and derive some feministic ideas out of that to prove, they're feminine, because they have a preconceived notion, and then they may try and men also do. Men also who are feminists may do that. And there are men who try to show their superiority over women by reading Bhagavatam. Oh, look at that Rishi got married to this, beautiful lady, and then how, she's been, how she was serving her husband. Right? We read that, right? In Kathamunis. So she's so loyal, she's so devoted to her husband. Look at my wife. Is this how you're supposed to serve your husband? What are we doing at that moment? We're trying to derive, manufacture, and interpretation. We're trying to gratify our senses using Bhagavatam. That is Shastra Aparad. We are offending the Shastras by trying to derive an interpretation. Rather, we must serve the Bhagavatam and say that my mind is full of wrong perceptions and ideas because of my association with this material world for billions of years, for billions of lifetimes. So Srimad Bhagavatam, please destroy all of this and help me understand you the way you want to be understood. If someone is associating with me and wants to understand me, I want them to understand me the way I want them to understand me. Not that, all my friends, you can have any idea you want about me. Somebody is thinking I'm the Prime Minister. Yeah, if you feel so, it's fine. Somebody thinks I'm a beggar on the street. Yeah, whatever. If you feel I'm a beggar on the street, I'm a beggar on the street. However you want to see me, you can see me. No. You must see me the way I want you to see me. This is my profession, this is my service, this is my attitude, this is my lifestyle. This is how you should understand me, because this is who I am. Otherwise, you can't be my friend. You're just some random person who's speaking and going, who I wouldn't even care about. But if you claim to be my friend, you should know me as I am. This is a basic expectation. So this is what devotees also should do. Don't try to derive something. Devotees have tried to pull instructions out of Srila Prabhupada's letters. If I want to prove a point, if I want to say that book distribution is the greatest service compared to everything else, what do? I go to the folio and I pull out Srila Prabhupada's letters where he speaks only about book distribution, and then I go and hammer everybody else. What are you doing? Book distribution is the most important. If I feel deity worship is the most important, I pull out only those letters and conversations about deity worship. Then I come and slam everybody else. You're not focusing on the deity. This is the deity worship is the most important seva. Somebody will say prasadam distribution is the most important. Somebody will say street sankirtan. Somebody will say 24-hour kirtan is the most important. And to prove our point, we will try and suck out some meaning from Bhagavatam, or Srila Prabhupada's letters or conversations. This is insincerity. We must not do that. In fact, we should be a fool, and this is the meaning of a fool. Sometimes you just take it very lightly. When Ishwar Puri and Lord Chaitanya met, when Ishwarapuri was giving sannyas to Lord Chaitanya, he told him, "You're a fool." Ishwarapuri is telling Lord Chaitanya, "You're a fool," because that's the mood of a disciple. He was setting a standard. When Sanatan Goswami met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sanatan Goswami knew so many different languages. He could debate in Persian, leave alone Sanskrit. Sanskrit, hardly anybody could was of that particular standard of Rupa and Sanatana. And Sanatan Goswami, leave alone Sanskrit, he could even debate and defeat Persian scholars with his language. Extremely aristocratic family. He was born in an aristocratic family. He lived an aristocratic life as Dabir Khas and Satar Malik. So much wealth, so much money, so much opulence and grandeur. Not just in terms of money and wealth, in terms of knowledge. The greatest scholars would come and submit themselves to Sanatan Goswami. And when this Sanatan Goswami met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he said, "I know nothing. People think that I'm a great scholar. And what is even worse is that I believe them. I believe them. But I know nothing. I know nothing. And I'm here to hear from you." And Sri Mahaprabhu was so, he told Sanatan Goswami, "Please stop saying such things because you're breaking my heart." Mahaprabhu said, "You're breaking my heart." Imagine the humility of Sanatan Goswami. That Mahaprabhu's heart is being broken by his humility. That's how humble he was. And here we are, we by heart 7 shlokas and we think we've mastered Srimad Bhagavatam. I give a class and you get some applause and then we think that yes, now I'm somewhere in bhakti. We must always remain a fool. Even when we are speaking or we're hearing, we must remain a fool that I don't know what. I'm just simply repeating what Srila Prabhupada said. Personally, I don't know anything. I'm a fool. I'm just repeating. And in this way, Divya Gyan, Hriday Prakashito, transcendental knowledge will be revealed. And it will be no more just a theoretical knowledge. Jnana and Vijnana, we will have practical knowledge. And practical knowledge comes from realizations. And realizations come from difficult times. So let's not ask Krishna to take away difficult times. Let us instead ask Krishna that let these difficult times, let me be able to learn, get many, many realizations during these difficult times. So we should be thankful to Krishna for these difficult times. That's why Srila Prabhupada is speaking here in the purport. He is saying, only the devotee by his factual experience can understand the import of this verse spoken by Vidura. Only a devotee by his factual experience, not by reading so many books without realizations. What we read, we must apply. We must contemplate and apply it. And when we apply it, we will fail, we will succeed, we will go through that. And Krishna, who is the original Jagat Guru, who's there in our heart, is the Supreme Lord, will take us through different circumstances in life. The people of the world are going through this pandemic. Devotees are going through this pandemic. But we think of it differently because of the Paramatma in our heart. We're learning lessons from it. While everybody is crying about something else, we cry because we are missing Krishna, and we say that because I have abandoned you and I've come to this material world, and look what kind of a world I've come into. So it's such a bad choice. But I have this one lifetime and I want to dedicate this lifetime to you so that I can come back to you, Krishna. With humility, that I will never interpret what Srila Prabhupada has told. I will take the words of Srila Prabhupada as it is, whatever it is, however it is. It may go completely against my thinking, completely against my own perceptions. But I will not be attached to my perceptions. I will accept the perceptions, the perspective of the Acharyas. This is the process of Krishna consciousness. So by doing this kind of attitude, we will be able to become Shraddhanasya, more and more eager to hear Krishna Katha. And this eager to hear Krishna Katha is not hearing newer and newer pastimes. I've already heard all the pastimes in Krishna book. So is there some hidden Purana where I can get some hidden stories? No, that is not our goal. The same pastimes of Krishna. Krishna is doing the same pastimes. Every time, every kalpa he comes, the same pastimes. He's killing Putana. Maybe the style could be slightly different here and there. He's killing the same Hiranyakashipu. Sometimes Narsimha breaks the pillar and comes, and sometimes he comes flying from the sky. Sometimes his color is golden. Sometimes he's white, Shweta Narsimha. He comes in different forms. But it's the same Prahlad Maharaj, same Hiranyakashipu. Then why am I looking for something else? Some unheard of pastime of Narsimha. If somebody tells, it's okay, we enjoy it. But it's not because we are bored of this Narsimha. Okay, we got it, the same pillar broke and he came out. Krishna is a baby, Putana came and he sucked her blood. No. When Srila Prabhupada is giving his Bhagavatam class, Srila Prabhupada in every Bhagavatam class will stress, no, you're not this body, you're the spirit soul. The next time we feel we're bored of that particular statement, we have to think, am I really convinced? Is it my mind that is telling me to ignore that statement? Because that's the very, very fundamental aspect of spiritual life. I have not even started my spiritual life if I'm not convinced that I'm not this body and I'm the spirit soul. That's the very fundamental foundation. Without that foundation, everything else is shaky. I've heard so many pastimes, I've read Bhagavatam, Brihad Bhagavatamrita, Laghu Bhagavatamrita, this one, that one, Ujjwala Nilamani, and I've become a great scholar now because I can quote from everywhere. But Hare Krishna Prabhuji, are you even convinced that you're not this body? Because Srila Prabhupada is speaking about that. So, only a devotee by his factual experience, if we have experienced that, then we can understand. Otherwise, all the, the pandemic now is just showing who we really are. Right? Suddenly we are, oh, I may die. What happened to all the realizations that we are getting, that we spoke about, that we're not this body? What happened to all of that? Of course, we must be careful. Our life, our body belongs to Krishna. We must be careful and take care of it and take all the precautions. But if death comes, so be it. That is also Krishna. That is our realization. And these times show us the mirror. So who are we really, and are we convinced about some basic facts? And this can happen only by reading Srimad Bhagavatam. So I'm going to end the class here. Let us become Shraddhadana Pumsaha, one engaged anxiously in bona fide hearing of Krishna Katha. So with this aspiration, with this goal in mind, let us focus on this particular shloka for the rest of the day. Whatever we may be doing, different kinds of activities, let us focus on the shloka, let us meditate on it and come up with realizations. Okay. Thank you, devotees. So I'm going to end the class here. And if there are any questions, you may ask, or we could close. Okay, so don't think that there are any questions. So we will end the class here. Thank you very much, devotees, for the opportunity. Granth Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Tat Sat. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavata.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Yes, Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Dandavata.
Hare Krishna.